Okay, I think we are ready to rock and roll. Charles, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it very much. Welcome to Cafecito con Colon. It seems as though we ought to be able to get going here. I am going to just tell you how grateful I am for your patience and not giving up. We had tons of technical difficulties this morning on Cafecito con Colon. But I believe we are live and in living color.
Yeah, you power through.
So I think, is that right? Are we streaming? Let me see. I can't get
It says
okay,
it says
good.
live.
Excellent. Live and in living color. And I vote for in living color in its heyday versus Saturday Night Live in its heyday. That's just me. I think it was either you or Mike asked that question last night on Twitter. Is that you?
No, it's probably Mike, but I agree with you. I would go in living color, definitely in the heyday over
right.
SNL. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. Well, look, I've got tons of links I want to put up, but too late. We lost that time. I lose on that. But there are some great things going on out there, and mostly, I think what the theme of my links were going to be today was really just speaking to the gravity and the power of the moment that we're in, because I think that more than ever in my time, I think we have seen in just 16 days since the killing of George Floyd, I think we have now seen that demonstrations, protests, engagement, vigils, community dialogue is making a difference in a phenomenally quick manner. Whether it's you see the statues coming down, whether it be of my potential ancestry, Cristobal Colon, or whether it is testimony on the Hill just 2 weeks after his brother's murder. Felonious Floyd takes a powerful about 5 minutes of testimony and how exhausted he is and how painful it is. And now he is the big brother. And I encourage you to look for that video. I will try and post it after we finish with Charles Ashley III today, or whether it is NASCAR finally seeing the light and bringing on the Confederate flags, or the Marines doing the right thing, or the U.S. soccer team lifting the ban on kneeling during the national anthem. Something is different this time. And we'll talk a little bit today with Charles Ashley III about what is different from his perspective. Please take time to, again, the other post I was going to put up today, again, was the 8 Can't Wait. We continue to have community dialogue nationally on that. Phenomenal pillars, phenomenal touch points for reconsideration for the way we deliver public safety in America. I know that I think just yesterday, Mayor Weber out of Santa Fe said that he is reevaluating his delivery systems and his methodology in Santa Fe for public safety in the lens of that which is been deemed as 8 Can't Wait. And you can check that out at the number 8can'twait.org. So please take a look at that. I will leave the rest of the links, and I just want to get to this is a big deal for me. And let me just share with you that this is a young man who I have watched grow in phenomenal ways, leaps and bounds, not just personally with his beautiful 3 children, but in a way that has really changed the entrepreneurial landscape in Albuquerque, whether it's getting us to rethink the way we deliver services, whether it's rethinking the way that we contemplate philanthropy and impact investing. When I worked with and was a trustee at the Albuquerque Community Foundation, we had the good sense to provide a very substantial grant to Cultivating Coders, which was the brainchild and the incredible, impactful organization that Charles Ashley III had the vision to create, which particularly served our underrepresented community in so many respects, but specifically as it relates to technology engagement and delivering services and opportunities to those communities, with a specific emphasis on people of color, our Native American community, and in communities where that access has not been readily available. And so I've been so grateful to him. And I will tell you why he's particularly impactful to me. Because I've watched him on his journey, because I have seen what he has done, and because for whatever reason, there's a very special place in my heart for Charles Ashley III. And it's a special place that puts him in that rare category of people. And maybe it should be more rare, but there are a certain number of people who I consistently look to for approval. And I say that from a very vulnerable place. But for whatever reason over the years, I have always sought Charles Ashley III's approval. And whether it's as a community leader or whether it's a candidate running for mayor of the city of Albuquerque, or whether it was running for state auditor, or whether it's just simply in my daily life, I have, and he doesn't know this in this very particular way in which I'm delivering the message of what he means to me. But I have always sought this young man's approval. And I feel in many ways I have met his expectations on occasion and maybe fallen short in others, but it is something that in a very special way, he is maybe one of those accountability partners for me out there that I seek approval from. And so to have him agree to come on Cafecito con Colon, it took me a little while to even extend the invitation, because I wanted to make sure that, again, I had his approval with this space that I was creating before I even asked him to join me. And so I am very grateful to him. I'm grateful that he's in my world. I'm grateful that he's in our particular community making a difference. And I love him very much and love what he has done for Albuquerque and the way he lifts up our community. There was a coverage last night of the work that he and Mike Silva did to create another silent protest. And I was able to participate in this one. I had a conflict for the first one, but was able to participate in this one. And I was honored to be invited. And then Channel 4 covered it in a very powerful way. But I just appreciate him putting himself out there as a community and business leader, as an entrepreneur that is very, very well respected. Channel 4 asked me, based on Charles's point, which was, there are many of us that have something to lose here by putting ourselves out there during this time and taking a principled stand and trying to engage others in difficult dialogue. And Channel 4 asked me what that meant to me. And I said, we had far more to gain as a community by engaging in this difficult dialogue than I personally could ever think about having to lose. And I appreciate Charles and Mike creating that space for me last night to be able to stand with them. And I'm thrilled to have him on today. He is, I think he is now 40. I think he's hit that 40 mark. He's got a bachelor's degree from Adams State University. If I remember right, Adams State, incredible wrestling. They do a ton of recruitment in New Mexico. Many of my mentees over the years have gone to Adams State. He's been married to Monica, I think, for 14 years now or so. And they have 4 kids ranging from I think 18. Is your eldest 18 now?
18.
That's amazing. You don't even look old enough to be 18 yourself. 18 all the way down to 4 years old. So he's got the full spectrum there of all the way from an upper teen down to that fantastic 4s. And we appreciate him taking some time to come on. He's been, look, there's tons of accolades and items that I could mention, but I just want to say he served on the board for the U.S. Eagle Federal Credit Union Board, which shout out to U.S. Eagle for having a beautiful woman of color at the helm there, if I remember correctly. Right?
Yes, Marcia.
Yeah, Marcia. And people like Dwayne, who is their head auditor, beautiful man of color who I spend a lot of time with on a weekly basis. He has served on the Learning Alliance board. He Dream Big, the New Mexico Aid Services, Albuquerque Youth Basketball League Board, the Albuquerque Soul Advisory Board, transition teams for mayors, the Deep Dive Council for Arts and Culture. He is just an incredible thought leader and somebody whose voice is respected in almost every aspect and area in our community. And it is a pleasure, privilege, and my honor to have you with us this morning, Charles Ashley III.
Oh, that was probably one of the best intros I've ever had.
Hey,
Brian,
you know, you deserve every bit of it, and I hold you in high esteem, my friend. Thank you
and,
for joining me
no,
this morning.
and thank you for those kind words, Brian, in regards to saying that accountability partners and friends, and you're someone I admire as well. You know that from when I mean, you're probably one of the first people that I met when I moved out here. You know, so it's been a while. So I respect that. I respect you coming on and putting yourself out there and letting people know how you feel about each other, feel about me. And I think more people should do that. I think we need to get out that this space of where we can't just be open and honest and transparent with one another. I love you as well, brother. Right. So I seek your approval just the same. So thank you for those kind words.
You bet. You bet. What I didn't do is talk a little bit about kind of your entrepreneurial journey right now. And I want our viewers to know about that. And I think it's important, and because you're a leader and in marketing, outreach, communications, technology, and maybe talk a little bit about that before we get going and cranking too hard.
Yeah. So I moved out here. I want to say, man, it's 12 years now. It's 12 years. Came out here from Las Vegas, Nevada. And most people say, "Oh, well, your wife is from here, so that's why you guys moved here." And to be honest, it was my decision. We had an option between Dallas, Denver, or Albuquerque, and every time we would visit here, I would meet someone. Every trip, I would meet a new person. Her family was amazing. I love the weather, all the stuff that we pitched in our New Mexico True campaign.
Right.
It was everything that lured me here, and it was funny because I had job offers in Dallas, I had job offer in Denver, I had no job offers here, and I said, you know what, let's go to Albuquerque.
Well, but you had Monica's family here, right?
Yeah, her family was here,
Yeah.
and so we waited, right? It was like, okay, you can go to these places and there's no family, or you can go to Albuquerque and still have a massive family support system, which would allow me to figure out, you know, what I want to do in regards to my career. I was in education in Las Vegas for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I was more of the business side. So I learned about education, but from the business side. Came out here, my first job was with Bernalillo County. I'll always be grateful because I was in economic development. I call it community equity. I probably sped up my community equity by 30 or 40 years, to be honest, because I was sitting alongside county managers. I was sitting alongside mayors. I was sitting alongside all of the business leaders out here. So for a person that wasn't from here to be in these meetings and to be part of executing these deals, recruiting businesses, as I said, economic development. I was part of the team that started the film office for Bernalillo County. I was part of the team that started the cultural services department for Bernalillo County. I was the lead on recruiting a ton of films in conjunction with the city of Albuquerque, the film office, and shout out to Ann Lerner, who did a lot of tutoring and mentoring for me. She taught me a lot. And so that led me, as I said, it sped up my community equity. And I had the ability to say, well, you know, for the average person, it would have took them 20 to 30 years. I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking sitting in these high level meetings. And when I finally decided to get out and do things on my own, I left. I started my own consulting firm. And
how come you didn't get into acting with that beautiful smile and that heart that comes through every interaction that you have with others? Man, you could have just owned the big screen.
No, I enjoy the business side of things, and thank you for that. But acting is not my thing. You have to do, all kind of stunts, and my daughters. That's what they want to do.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
They love the camera, but got into consulting and more of the strategy marketing side. So I had a couple tech clients. I had a couple TV clients, of course, because I built up a nice network with that, and landed at a major university client where that's when I really got into the computer science lane, started learning about things. Ended up leaving the local community college, and decided there was this gap as far as technology and technology education, and primarily in tribal communities, rural communities, and even some inner city areas. And then when you really start digging into it, and I dug into it, I'm talking 6 months of research, Brian, dug into it. And, you know, the data doesn't lie. Like our computer science education was drastically lower than most places, right? So then you start asking questions of why aren't Black and brown kids, Native kids, going into the technology sector? And some will, because there's some who are persistent, just like yourself, right? You couldn't log on to Facebook, we couldn't connect to Zoom, but you're persistent, and then you broke through, right? A lot of people, you know, you can be persistent, and then sometimes you eventually just get to the point where you say, I'm gonna go do something else, right? So there are some kids who, despite the inequities, still fought through and found a way to go be an engineer, go be a developer, to go and study over at NASA and things of that nature. Right. But for the most part, if it's not offered broadly, you're not going to have those numbers that we so often seek, right? We always talk about diversity and inclusion. So with that, I said, well, what if we just create a program essentially where we're just going to give away computer science training? Just give it away. We're going to go. We parachute into communities. We live there for 8 to 12 weeks, depending on the program. We provide these services for free. And then, of course, people say nothing's for free. And our job is to find the funding for those young people to get the training for free. All of the young people get laptops. It's all project-based. We want them engaged from the very beginning. We don't want to waste time. It sounds bad, but we don't want to waste time because I see you have books. I love reading as well. But we didn't want to waste time with the book aspect because they've been in that classroom setting for so long that as soon as they would see the book, they would tune out. So we said, what if we get them engaged first, right? Trick them. We're going to trick you. And then we're going to introduce you to the books because they're so caught up in what they're learning, right? Then they want to know, why does something function a certain way? And for you to learn that, you have to learn the theory. So now you got to do the reading and the research and the studying. And then by the time they're done with the course, the high school kids, usually this is the trajectory. Once the high school kids are done, they're doing web applications, some are doing mobile applications, some are building video games. But the entire point of the summer program for the high school kids is open their minds to how massive the world is. And then you don't even have to go and be in the STEM field. But once you get exposed to this, you understand that there's so much out there for you to do, and don't limit yourself. And now you have a skill set that allows you that opportunity. So that's my journey. That's been our journey.
So folks, let me just say this. Now you understand, in that little 4 minutes, you now understand why there hasn't been a pitch where he has failed. Like, we are just, by the time he finishes talking about this, and I'm going to ask him to go to just a couple of the data points of success that you've enjoyed in terms of those students that you've touched and changed their lives. But I just want to say that it's like, when Charles Ashley III finishes his presentation about his deep impact in our Native American community, our African American community, our young Hispanic community that often doesn't have those things available to them, whether it's in the international district or whether it's in rural New Mexico, I've seen it. Like, the money is flying out of people's pockets directly into Charles Ashley's lap. And now you know why, because you can just feel the heart and the passion, and you can understand the connectivity of his concepts and why it changes lives, and why C&M has embraced that model, with their deep dive. And like, you have changed the educational landscape in New Mexico because you have impacted the largest educational post-high school educational institution in the entire state of New Mexico, which is C&M. And so Charles Ashley III, tell us about just a couple of the data points. And I hope that you will afford me the opportunity to keep you to like 10:15, since we lost that first 15 minutes.
You're cutting into my workout time, but you're a friend, so I'll hang around to 10:15.
Well, I appreciate that. Thankfully, your physique tells me that 15 minutes of cutout isn't going to be too much on the downside for you. But yeah, tell us a little, because I know some of these data points. I want you to share with our viewers just some of those data points, and then let's get into a little bit more of the difficult dialogue today.
Yeah. So the good thing about So this is how it started. C&M they have an amazing program, right? C&M Ingenuity is amazing. They offer great accelerated programs. But I thought we would be something complementary to what they were doing, right? Because there's certain groups that aren't as close to Albuquerque, right? So they're not going to have the ability to come here and partake in C&M's amazing programs. So we've always looked at ourselves as a partner to C&M, right? Like we're doing work that they're not doing right now, so it complements it, right? So we're traveling out to Gallup, we're traveling out to Farmington, we're in Espanola, we're in these the South Valley, Los Lunas. So I think it's going to take
Where
more
was
than
that?
just
Where was that?
Los Lunas.
Yes, Los
South
Lunas.
Valley.
That's my
Yeah,
hometown, baby.
there you go. Tigers, go Tigers,
You
right?
got it. Go Tigers. Two cats, one city. Now we've got the Tigers and the Jaguars down there, which is kind of weird to me. I'll be a Tiger for life.
I know that bias right there. See, but
Totally.
you have these two programs, and not to even overlook UNM's continuing education, who they've been creating some amazing programs. But Brian, to be honest, that our technology, our computer science education gap is so massive. We need more programs, right? And I always look at stuff this way. I rather would have more, right? If you could just saturate it, because it's going to allow you to be exposed to multiple people, multiple communities, and then you're going to get the best and the best of the best and the best and the brightest, right? So I'm a fan of more when it comes to education. More is great when it comes to education. So the data points that we have, we've been around for 5 years. We've had 517 people complete our program. We have a 93% completion rate. Some of the young people, we have one who went to Columbia University. He's also a Google intern, which he's a freshman Google intern, which is rare. We have a couple kids who've gone to Georgetown. We've had Shiprock High School up in Shiprock, New Mexico. We started with 9 kids. I think their after-school coding club was up to 100 something. They recently received the National Science Foundation grant for, I believe, $4 million. We've partnered up with the Obama Foundation and done things. What we've accomplished in 5 years, I didn't start it for that reason. I didn't know that it would start.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Yeah,
The Obama Foundation stands with Charles Ashley III.
Yes, we can. My brothers, Keeper and Lions, were part of that. We've had funders from everyone from Microsoft to the Facebooks to P&M, who's been an amazing partner. But to be honest with you, none of that probably would even happen without the Community Foundation. You guys were our first funder. Yeah, the first funder. And it allowed us to grow. We're a nonprofit, but we also have a for-profit side where we, instead of waiting around for employers to come and employ our students, we serve as an employer as well. So we'll take the ones who are committed, the ones who are motivated, the ones who say, you know what, I want to continue this. And we bring them on, we hire them, we put them on contract, we work on real projects, they make money, and then all of a sudden they've built their portfolio up. So we've really grown. Like, we were a baby in the beginning, and now we're kind of getting our steps. I still look at us as a toddler. We're still wobbly. We're still learning some stuff, but the what we've seen from this 5 years has been amazing. Not to mention, we were tech startup of the year at South by Southwest. So yeah. I mean, that was before we even started our first camp. We won by our business model, but I think the last time
let's just be very clear. You won because of the capacity you have when you pitch, man. I mean, I'm just telling you, like, this is like informal, but if you saw him prepped and ready to go for a pitch, like, it is A+ 5 out of 5 times. And I've seen it. And I'm just telling you, you've got such a beautiful presence and authenticity. Your desire to change the landscape for young children who don't have access to opportunities and technology is palpable. It is so authentic and palpable. That's, to me, that's the secret sauce. That's been the superpower of cultivating coders, and it starts with you. And I appreciate the team you've built out and the platform you've built and everything you've done with that. And I am so glad that we're able to kind of spotlight that and highlight that. And you brought out some amazing folks, whether it's Dean Mathewson or Caroline Burkle, Harold Pope, Jeanette came back, Kenneth Scott's here. We've got some great folks, Pat Barrett, Denise Lee, Dr. McCaffrey, Roberta Simone, Liz Hernandez. Like, we've got some really cool folks here that tuned in to not just learn about cultivating coders. They are here, many of them, because you've had a particular experience. And I want to frame today's conversation a little differently than I have framed any other.
Okay.
And part of it is because it's what you bring out in me, because you do such a good job. You and Mike both, Mike Massive Silva, do such a good job of being in that optimistic space. And you have both been such phenomenal ambassadors for New Mexico True, Albuquerque, One Albuquerque. Like, that is your heart and soul on your sleeve, and you wear it every day. And I looked at so many interviews that you did, and can you just take one bad picture? Like, I had to work so hard to narrow down the pictures I was going to use to promote today's Cafecito con Colon. But I will just say this, you have so consistently sung the same song that I sing, which is New Mexico is the most beautiful place. We are a multicultural state. We are the 47th in the union, but we are number one in the hearts and souls of so many who understand what it is to be embraced by the land of enchantment. We have sung that song for so long that, and this is where it gets difficult, that I think that, and I'm so guilty of this, and I have grown so much in the last 2 weeks because of guests like you. We have failed to take inventory in some of the areas that are so critical for us all to enjoy that beauty of New Mexico, and failed to, in our conversation about being a beautiful multicultural community, we have failed to understand that that beauty in some ways is only skin deep. And I hope that the analogy is appropriate. And I say skin deep because if we just cut just barely below the surface of everything that we love, there is so much more that we have failed to face, contemplate, and correct. And I guess what has happened over the last 16 days for me is that I have decided that I am going to face that. I am going to contemplate it. I am going to contemplate what it is like to see and then hear what the lived experience is for Black men and Black women in New Mexico, who are 2.9% of our population, but who provide so much beautiful texture in the tapestry that makes us a special place. And that has been a growing experience for me, but it also has been eye-opening. And if it's eye-opening for me, how much more so for people who aren't deeply engaged in our cultural community? Like, I'm supposed to be so tuned in, and yet I have still had the opportunity to grow so much in the last 2 weeks. And so even though you and I are incredible ambassadors, or I like to think we're incredible ambassadors, I know you are, for our community and for our state and all that is beautiful, I think now's the time to have these difficult conversations about, as beautiful as we are, we still have a lot of work to do. And I posted that yesterday on a comment because somebody said, we are multicultural, we are beautiful, we are, and yes, but we're not having the difficult dialogue about the room we still have to grow and the experience that you have lived in Albuquerque, New Mexico, that you don't often talk about because you've had those difficult pinch points on your journey, even in Albuquerque.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit? Because I think that's the difficult part of what we're all trying to be authentic about at this moment in time. And maybe in George Floyd's honor, and maybe so that we can be better, that we can be more enriched, because after these difficult conversations, these moments of silence like we had last night, where we marched for a mile in silence and then stood in silence for nearly 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Speak to that, Charles Ashley III.
Yeah, you know, and I told people this. I said I haven't viewed the George Floyd murder, right? I read about it, and then I saw a clip of it, and the clip alone was enough to send me over the top. And I couldn't put my words together, and I put a video out just because I wanted to express myself. And I started to think, and when I say I had this rage, it wasn't a rage of, you know, you want to go out and destroy something. You know, it was a rage of, why do people, why don't they love us? Like, what is it about us that they do not love? You know, and I heard Dr. Cornel West say it probably the best I've ever heard. He said, despite all of the things that Black people have gone through in this world, in this country particularly, we love harder than most people. We find light in even the darkest times. We love that. We find this love. For the most part, you see us loving people who don't love us back, right? Yeah. And I sat back and I thought about that statement he said. I said that's powerful. Think about how powerful it is. Where it's like, despite you knowing that there are people who do not love you, you still love them wholeheartedly, right? So that you get that statement, you see and hear about George Floyd, and then you think about your experiences. Like, I thought about my experiences, and I tell people I'm lucky. And when I say I'm lucky, I maneuvered the system, but I didn't get through the system unscathed. You know, I've had multiple encounters with law enforcement. I've rarely told the story. There was one time I was 13 years old. I'll never forget it. Me and my friend John Maxton, we're still friends to this day. We're going to play ball. So we're dribbling. Both have a basketball. We're dribbling down the street. We see a cop just goes by us. This is my first ever encounter with a cop ever. So he goes up, he does a U-turn, speeds back, cuts us off, jumps out the car and says, "Where's your ID?" Like, you know, he's yelling at us. Like, "Where's your ID? Where's your ID?" We're in basketball shorts, you know, we're going to play ball. And 13. And I'm saying, I don't have an ID. I don't have an ID. And then my buddy John, like, well, I don't have an ID. I don't have an ID. And then, you know, he's getting upset, and then he just like lasers in, like focuses on me, like, "Where's your ID?" You know, and he started saying some not nice words to a 13-year-old. And then he's just furious, and he pulls his gun out and puts it on my chest. He says, "Where's your effing ID?" I was like, "I don't have an ID." I said, "I'm 13. So he pulls his gun back. He's like, "Oh, well, you look like you're 17. And he just jumps back in his car and he leaves. So imagine you're a 13-year-old kid. I was a kid. And that's your first encounter with law enforcement. So when I tell people I'm lucky, that's one experience. I can give you 7 or 8 different experiences, and I'm not exaggerating, 7 or 8 very similar to that experience. So as all of this stuff is happening, and as I know what I am privileged, I've managed to maneuver the system. That is what I looked at. Like, that's what I consider privilege, is that I maneuvered a system where I didn't get killed. I didn't get arrested. I didn't get incarcerated because someone decided, I'm just going to pull you over, take you to jail. I didn't get beat up, you know. So I've managed to maneuver the system and then get to a place where, yeah, in some people's eyes, you would say he's had some success. But I've also looked at that success with a sacrifice, or I've had to I had to bite my tongue, because I have experience, and I love this place. I have experienced racism in Albuquerque, blatant racism, you know, where, you know, I've had to do things 10 times better than someone else. I've had to sit in a meeting knowing that it was work that I did, that someone else took credit for that work. And I couldn't say anything because it's just because they're like, "Oh, well, how we know it's your work?" all the way up to when I started a company and I had to justify why I was qualified to start a company. You know, it was never, let's look at the work you've done. Let's look at what you've built. Let's look at your track record, or even let's look at your team. I've sat in a meeting in this very state where there's people who would talk to my CTO and then assuming it was his company, and then finally say, oh, wait a minute, it's your company? So you pile all that up. And I just sat there and I said, what about all the other little Black kids, little Black girls, little Black boys, our biracial kids? We have a lot of biracial. So when they talk about that 2.9 stat, it's probably higher because we have a lot of biracial kids here. And and most biracial parents will tell you, you are viewed as Black. Like Mike Silva is viewed as Black. Right. So as I'm sitting there and all that happened, I decided I wasn't gonna sit here anymore and not at least speak out and just have a voice when it comes to this injustice, because it's beyond just police brutality. Like what you see people protesting, Brian, is beyond police brutality. It's the root, like it's number one. But now, you know, people are now speaking out about, you know, how people still have their biases, how they're overlooked, how they're pushed to the side, how they're not valued just as much as someone else. But we didn't want to do it in a way where it was violent or it was deemed aggressive. Mm-hmm. Like we wanted to be smart. We wanted to say, let's do something where it's going to be powerful and we could have the ability to bring out people in our community who we consider friends, who we consider allies, who we both said it. We want to know where you stand on this issue. I believe right now, there's no middle anymore. You need to have a side. You're either for Black lives, human lives. Let's break it down to the most basic element. You're for human lives, or you're not. It's been far too long that we've sat in the middle to say, oh, well, what did she do? Or what did he do? Or what happened? Or what, you know, that type of thing. But, you know, there's always a but. But at the end of the day, a human life has more value than whatever excuse we can come up with. Whatever excuse, the human life still has more value. And it's just, we felt it's our job to just at least bring it to light so we can have these discussions. You know, like there's going to be people who say, oh, well, I love you, Charles. Okay, that's great. But do you love everyone else? Like if you didn't know me, you know, right. I still experience times, my office is downtown. People have seen me multiple times. I still experience it where there's someone walking on the street and they'll cross the street. Right? So until those days are over, I think we're just going to have to be more vocal and have these conversations. And this is going to make it better. And like I said last night, let's talk about it, because if we can't discuss it to where it becomes real for people who are non-Black, then we're going to continue business as usual. But I don't know about everyone else. I know in my heart, I'm not going to live that life anymore where it's business as usual. I'm just going to face it head on. We're going to talk about it. We're going to do things. We're going to create tangible items, tangible programs, things that are going to say, how do we fix this? And what I do love about New Mexico, amongst the many things, we are so close and connected that I believe we can accomplish what most places, it's going to take them decades. We can accomplish that in just a short span. So that's what I'm challenging people to do, is to say, stop looking at it as, well, that's not me, or I don't think that way, or I've never seen it happen, and just listen to us when we tell you these stories. The reason why I don't tell all my oh, poor me stories is because most people, it's too hard. They're so drastic. It's hard for people to even believe you. So drastic that you can't even fathom that can happen. So you think it's an exaggeration.
Right.
You know, so that's what we're on. It's like, let's come together. let's bring people together. Let's talk about it. Let's not divide. We don't want to divide. We want to come together and figure out solutions. I'm a solutions person. Everything I've ever done has been solutions. So let's figure it out.
I think you bring up something very powerful, which is that because of the connectivity that we have in New Mexico, whether it's because we're 2.1 million people or because we've got, 500 years worth of experience and so many generations, and maybe it's, our Native American community and some of those values that we see in that community, we are so well positioned to be able to lead in this conversation, which was my quote last night, as you saw on Channel 4, because I believe it, and you articulated it better than I could. But I think it is that closeness, and that maybe it's whether it's population or whether it's because we're in communities that, whether it's Albuquerque, the largest community, or whether it's in Jal, New Mexico, or Alcalde, like we all know each other, right? Like it is going to be very rare for me to reach out to somebody that I don't have a connection to. And it's not because I'm part of the social profit sector and landscape, or because I'm part of the political landscape. It's always been like that. And even you, Charles, bump into so many people that you have mutual connections with in New Mexico, that hopefully if you can help be that leader, and Mike can help be that leader, and people like Kathy McGill and so many other Black women and Black men can be, you help create this ripple effect that, like you say, reaches the 2.1 million far more quickly than communities that have 2.1 million people in them, instead of a whole state that has that 2.1 million.
Absolutely. And we do have amazing leaders out here. And I was telling a friend, I said, I know, quote unquote, we're only 2.9% of the population, right? But I view everything as a child, as children. Would you still neglect your child, whether your child was younger, right? Because that's kind of how I look at it. We're younger. We're 2.9%. So are you going to neglect that child because you say, oh, they're only 2.9% of the population? Or are you going to give that child probably more attention to help grow and help nurture and listen to their problems and whatnot? And I think because we are so sheltered too, because we live in this beautiful land that we're just hanging out, where you can go and golf and ski in the same day. You can golf at UNM South, and you can drive all the way up to Taos and ski in the same day.
Ladies and gentlemen, this message brought to you by New Mexico Truth.
That's a true story. I did that for a client. So we live in this bubble. So I feel like we ignore a lot of the world issues out here.
Right.
And it's not as impactful. And instead of us maybe reaching out to our Black friends saying, hey, that's kind of messed up what happened to Breonna Taylor. Oh, did you see what happened to Ahmaud Arbery? Did you see what happened to Tamir Rice? I've never before this time, Brian, this is being 1000% honest, I've never had a true racial conversation with a non-Black friend up until now. You're talking 12 years living out here. It's just something that we ignore out here, because I do believe that we get so caught up in we are so multicultural, which we are diverse, which we are. We have this amazing culture out here. But I think that we get so caught up and wrapped up in that we still forget about our child, our 2.9%. We forget about them. Instead of addressing it, we kind of just it's not like that here, but it is. We just don't speak up about it as much because, what I said last night, there's a lot to lose. There are people who don't want to talk about this. There are people who don't want to address it. There are people who will say, oh, well, you guys got it good out here. In reality, we do not have it good out here. It shouldn't be where we shouldn't still live in a time where you still have a token Black person, token Black woman, a token. No, it should be multiple. There's multiple leaders. There's multiple business people. There's multiple educators, and where it doesn't have to be he or she is always in the room, right? You know, like in all honesty, if you think about an event and you said, okay, what Black people will be here? I can almost guarantee you could put together a list of 5 or 10, right?
No, you're absolutely right.
And so that's what we need to start facing and addressing and discussing. And I feel we need more Black leaders. I feel like if we had more Black leaders in like real leadership roles, I feel like a lot of this would be addressed. But since we don't, we kind of just sit at the table and it's like, oh no, we're fine. We're fine. And we're not.
That's exactly right. I appreciate you kind of validating the initial framing for this conversation, because I haven't done it yet in quite this way. So I appreciate that. And I'm, you know, I've got people lined up, right? Like I was going to do this for a week, and then I was like, I'm going to do it for 2 weeks. And I'm telling you that, you know, this may be Cafecito con Colon Black Voices for the rest of the year. I mean, and here's my goal. It's like, not only am I going to have Hakeem Bellamy on next week on Tuesday, I think. Not only am I having you today, and we're going to bring on Chad Cooper and those 10 people that you were just referencing, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm also going to bring on people like Denise Lee, who's tuned in every single day, and she would reference herself probably the way that Robert Gibson referenced himself, right? When he was on with Patrick Barrett, which is, he's just a regular Black guy, yeah. Right? Because we have to be able to create a space where we understand the spectrum, because like you said, you've had some privilege, right? Mm-hmm. There are members in our community, Black women and Black men, who don't have any privilege to embrace.
Absolutely.
And so we have to, I'm hoping that I can, over the course of the next, like I said, I was gonna do this for a week, and I'm still getting so much good therapy here that I feel like I'm gonna keep going for a while. We've got to create a space where those of us who are listening now can hear all those voices, those Black voices. And you said it so well, and it hurts me. First of all, your story about being a 13-year-old boy, a brand new teenager who is likely in 7th or 8th grade at that moment, to have a pistol pointed at you, like, that is unbelievable. And then for you to be here now is just very, very powerful for me personally to understand or hear that lived experience. And I appreciate you sharing it. And I've got a heavy heart in some ways, because until now, in spite of all that's gone on in the last 6 years or 7 years in terms of being part of the dialogue and the current affairs and the Black Lives Matter movement over the last 6 years, I have never engaged my Black friends in these difficult conversations. And you just said it, like 12 years, and no one's engaged you in that conversation that hasn't been somebody who looked like you when you look in the mirror. Shame on me. Shame on us. And all I can do is process that, own that, take responsibility for that. And I have to fix me, because you're not the problem, I'm the problem. You're not broken, I'm broken. And so I'm going to read more, I'm going to watch more, I'm going to talk more, but most importantly, I'm going to make myself available to listen to more people who I respect and who I'm getting to know, like you. And I'm just grateful for that opportunity.
Yeah, and I, you know, and I wouldn't even say, when we say problem, it has like such a negative, like it's this negative feeling, right? When you say problem, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a problem. I feel as if it's just part of how it's part of the American experience, is where most people, the American experience for them didn't include the Black experience. So when you say, you know, you're going to read more, you're going to talk more, and most important, you're going to listen, that's all we've ever been asking. Like, that's all we, when you think about when Black people are out there protesting, we're just saying, just listen. Like, you know, educate yourselves to know that there has been so many hurdles and barriers put in front of us, that all we're saying is just love us like we love you. Take a moment to sit back and listen, and listen with intent. Don't listen to have a rebuttal, right? Because there's a lot of people right now who are listening just to have a rebuttal. Okay, yes, but what about this? Or what about this? Instead of just saying, I'm listening, I'm soaking it in, and I'm hearing you, and I feel you. If you listen with intent, that's how we're going to get over this. If we're listening to come up with reasons for why things are the way they are, we're going to continue to struggle. So thank you for just acknowledging that. Hey, I'm just going to listen. I'm going to truly listen. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to talk. I'm going to engage people, and we have to do it. Don't shy away from it. The most disheartening thing to me in all of this is that you have families who are torn apart because you have people with different views. And for this time, Brian, to be honest, and I really shy away from saying, oh, there's a right and wrong. There is a right and wrong with this one, right? The right side is human life, Black life, that we are killed at a higher clip when it comes to law enforcement. We are poorer. If you look at the median when it comes to household salaries, the gap is just it's a shame, the gap when it comes to household median. When it comes to education, and when it predominantly like K through 12, you know, so you start adding all this up. So all we're saying is there is a right side. Just acknowledge that we continue to struggle with the Black experience, and let's do something to solve it. Or there's the other side where it's like, oh no, they're fine. I pulled myself up by the bootstrap, and I don't ever want to hear bootstrap again, because for you to pull yourself up by the bootstrap means
you gotta have some boots.
You gotta have no, not even the boots, Brian. You gotta have the weapon to kill the animal. You gotta have the knife to skin, so you have the hide. Then you gotta have the knowledge to actually create the boot to pull the boot up. We don't have all of that. So when I hear pull yourself up by the bootstrap, I'm like, well, yeah, if you got a boot, that's nice. So the fact that we're here in this dialogue that we're having, this feels good. This makes me hopeful. This makes me know that there are people who care. This makes me say, oh, you can look outside of yourself and understand someone else's pain or what they've been going through. You might never fully understand it or feel it, but if you just can somehow to try to find something that relates, I mean, that's where it starts. You know, you and then there's, you know, you have the people who they'll say, I have Black friends. It's okay, but do you care about Black people?
Let me just say this again, because I hope that it's as powerful for other people as it is, as it has been for me. To your point, I have plenty of Black friends, but how many until now, including the phone call I made to one of my closest friends on the planet, Tommy McKinney Jr., formerly of Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, and now living in Washington, D.C. I mentored that guy through his undergraduate degree, and then he got a bachelor's degree, then he got another degree, and now he's so well educated, he's a highfalutin accounting specialist in contractor in Washington, who ended up, by the way, watching over my son for 4 years while Rafael was at GW. So the full circle came around. But even him, who I have been so close with for 20 years, how close have I been if I've never asked him about his pinch points in life?
Yeah.
His lived experience. And I hadn't. And I hadn't talked to you about your lived experience. And I hadn't talked to Chad Cooper about his lived experience. I hadn't talked to all these women and men I cared so deeply about and who I loved. I still had that huge blind spot that was right in front of me, which was, Charles, let me ask for you to stand with me in this journey. But then I never said, can you help me understand what your journey has been like? Because it's far more comfortable to be able to just see you in that coffee shop where you like to go every day, so that you're on your routine, slap you on the back and be able to be all excited to see CA3, and I feel good, but yet I've never had the pain that I had this morning while I listened to you tell your story. So I'm not a racist, I got black friends, doesn't cut it. Like, do you have black friends that you have listened to? Because as I sit here today, I can say I've been listening for 2.5 weeks. But for 50 years, I wasn't listening. And yes, this is recorded. Yes, stuff's going to get clipped out. But I'm no longer willing to not own my role in all of this. And I'm just here to do that. And I'm just grateful that you joined me for it.
No, I'm grateful that, as I said, that we're having this dialogue, and grateful that you came out yesterday and stood with us. And we have a ton of work to do. And, you know, it's it's not going to be a moment. I don't want it to even be a movement. I just want it to be a way of life.
That's right. And I talked about that, and you've heard me talk about it. And I want you to tell me, and maybe we'll close kind of in this area here, which is, and I'm going to let you close us out. But I've been saying the last week that I don't want this to be a flashpoint. I want this to be the tipping point. Like, this is the time. This is the moment for us to embrace that little bit of that little opening. Like, I wish I could say that we have a huge opening here, right? Because what we watch for 8 minutes and 48 seconds will change all of us forever, and we will forever be more empathetic and sympathetic and receptive and responsive. But I don't think so. Like, we've got a small window here, and we gotta push it open, and we gotta own it and be in it and make a difference. So how, from Charles Ashley III's perspective, and thank you for your authenticity and candor this morning. How do we stand with you in this moment in a way that's taller than we could have ever imagined standing? And that may be, how can we be the best ally that we can be?
That, you know, such a loaded question, but I'll play off your analogy of saying we do have a small window, right? But if you get this groundswell of people, so you have this small window, and you have people, you know, like getting into that gap. The more and more people that we get to say this is not right, that window starts to expand, right? You get more and more people pushing that window open and open and open. So we just need more support, and that, whether that's being allies when it comes to just speaking out, whether that's you with hiring practices, whether it's you acknowledging educational policies, whether it's you saying, I'm gonna, you know, I have all these black friends, I'm going to actually talk to them about these issues. You know, it is a small window, but if more and more people just listen and acknowledge what's going on, and then actually do things about it, then it becomes more than just a small opening. It becomes more than just a flashpoint. It becomes more than a tipping point. As I said, it becomes, that's just life changes. It becomes part of the culture now. The culture of, you know, we're no longer going to treat or ignore or you know, silence the Black experience. We're going to truly embrace our child. Like, this is one big family, and as I keep saying, we just want to be loved. We've had our arms out to be embraced. So it's time for the country to do the same thing, like embrace us, and then let's move forward. You know, we always talk about America, the great experiment or whatnot, You know, this opening gives us the chance to truly live up to that moniker. It gives us the chance to truly live up to it. And then we tackle our next problem. You know, whatever issue that is, then we tackle that. But right now, this is the issue at hand. Black folks are fed up, and they just, and as I keep saying, we just want to be loved. We love you. We love everyone. We just want to be loved back. That is it. I don't understand why people even want to. I don't understand why people would debate that. How do you?
It's not complicated. It's not.
Yeah.
Complicated.
How do you debate racism? Like, we just want to be loved.
You know what's interesting? It's not complicated one-on-one like this, right? And hopefully, if we can take that lack of complication one-on-one, and then take that unity to deconstruct the systemic barriers for success and engagement that Black women and Black men have experienced for 400 years. That's maybe the approach, is to just love and to just create these one-on-one dialogues so that we adjust the lens we look through. And I can't think of adjusting my lens with anyone who I could enjoy it more with than Charles Ashley III. You inspire me. You always have. For as long as I've known you, I have sought your approval. I have loved you. I embrace you. And I am a better man for knowing you. And I just appreciate you so much, Charles.
I appreciate you, Brian. I appreciate that. Love you. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your platform. Thank you for what you're doing, elevating Black voices, even just elevating voices, right? It's an amazing thing you're doing, and your compassion and your empathy, I feel it is a good way to start my day. So I am grateful for you today. Thank you, brother.
You're very, very welcome. Folks, thanks for joining us on Cafecito con Colon. We know that we've had around 40 to 70 people off and on this morning, even though we started late, which is highly unusual for me. But I'm pleased that you hung in there with us. I know that by the end of the day, we'll have 1,500 views on this particular episode, as we've had all along. And I just want to thank Charles Ashley III of Cultivating Coders, Entrepreneurial and Community Fame, for joining me and validating this space with his presence and with his authenticity and with his engagement. And I just want to encourage folks to reach out during this time of isolation. Reach out, and when you think about, I'm not a racist because I got Black friends, why don't you pick 3 of them, call them up today, tell them they're in isolation but they're not alone, and by the way, tell me about your lived experience. Yeah. Because until you understand the lived experience of your Black friends, you really haven't been a friend in the way that you can be if you want to be the best version of yourself you were created to be. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you for joining us on Cafecito con Colon. Thank you, Charles Ashley III. You are a superhero, and I'm so glad you're in New Mexico.
All right, brother. You take it easy.
All right.
I love you.
Thank you, everybody. I love you. And we'll see you next time. We'll see you tomorrow. Look, let's see. We got some great folks coming on. I can't even remember. They're so great. Tomorrow, Marcus Porter. I think Denise Lee. I think we got on Saturday. I don't remember who we have on Saturday. I know that on I can't find my appointments on here, but I know we got lots of great folks coming on. We got Jim Harvey, who works with the Peace and Justice Center here in Albuquerque. Great Black man who has engaged the community in an important dialogue. He's got some exciting things to talk about. Like I said, Hakeem's coming on. We've got who's our friend that's running point for the census? Fantastic African-American woman, Black lady.
Renee Ward?
No, is Renee doing the census too?
Yeah, she's helping out with that as well.
Of course she is. She's another superstar. But no, it was, who was it? What's her name? Anyway, we're going to do another episode with her and her lived experience, but we'll also continue to promote the census and the importance of filling out the census, especially for our communities of color that are undercounted every single decade that we do a census. So
it could be Beverly. Were you thinking Beverly?
No, what's Beverly's last name? Do you know?
I gotta look it
Maybe
up.
it's Beverly. Yeah, it's a great young woman. She's young, and I know that I told her, I said, well, we did already. Kathy McGill, who I think talked a lot about the census, and of course Pamela Herndon's always talking about the census, and so we
Because
talk
it
about
matters. It
all the
matters.
time. Be counted. Be
Yeah.
counted. So let's do that together next week. Charles, you know that you've got me. You when your messages come through, when your phone calls come in, you're at the front of the line, my friend. Thank you for taking my call. Thanks for
All right.
showing up at Cafecito con Colon and being my extrovert therapist for today.
My brother, you take it easy. Peace.
You too. Peace.